Hello class! So today is the video for Thursday, September 24th, and there's a few things that I would like to talk about. But first, let's go into our syllabus and course schedule, which I have updated, so if you want to take a look at those, feel free. So what I'm going to be talking about today within this video is turning in the final draft of the DCA, which is due tonight by midnight via Dropbox on Blackboard. And we're going to begin essay number 2, pre-write and discussion. And also for homework, what you should be working on is reading the Norton Field Guide, Chapter 10, and doing reading response number 4 by next Tuesday at noon. And we are going to also annotate an article for a paper. And I'll talk in a little bit about what annotation is. But first, I would like to cover the Dropbox. So hopefully everyone finished peer review by Tuesday night. And if you have not already, I would definitely do peer review probably quickly. And then, like I said, the final draft of the DCA is due tonight by midnight. So I will show you how to turn in that Dropbox. Or, I'm sorry, I will show you how to turn in the paper via the Dropbox. So what you're going to do is go under Dropboxes for papers and go under the DCA Final Draft Dropbox. So in order to turn in the paper, you have to checkmark I agree to submit my papers to the Global Reference Database. Otherwise, it will not submit. You can submit your file as a Word document, a PDF, or Google Docs link. And I have my little test draft that I have for the DCA right here. And all you do for that, if you want to download your Google Doc as a Word document, all you do is go into File and Download. And there's an option to download it as a Microsoft Word document or a PDF. So what I'm going to do is download it as a Microsoft Word document. And then I'm going to go back to the DCA Dropbox. And then from there, what you would do is browse from my computer and go into Downloads and submit that DCA draft. And it will upload the file and attach it for you. But if you want, you can also submit a file from Google Drive, which is Browse Cloud Storage, and you can upload a file from there as well. So then once you have the file attached and uploaded, all you do is hit submit. And it will upload that file for you. There you go. Yep. Okay, so the other thing I would like to talk about today is the discussion board. So the discussion board has been uploaded. So reading response number 4 is due by next Tuesday, September 29th by noon. So that's what you should be working on in terms of homework as well. So anyway, I would like to get into the second paper. And I have uploaded the essay number 2 materials, and the second paper is a rhetorical analysis, or what we like to refer to it as the RA for short. So then you go into, I have the guidelines, the rubric, the sample paper, And we're also going to be analyzing an article. So that is the main goal of the second paper, is analyzing an article from the New York Times that I actually chose. And we analyze it rhetorically. But let's just start with the guidelines first. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will at least cover the basics here. So for your DCA, you applied rhetorical concepts to your past experiences in order to explain how you joined a community. Similarly, anytime we attempt to join an established group, we usually join just by listening. Listening helps us recognize the backgrounds of the participants, the common types of conversation, the values of the groups. So to put it another way, your own expressions are far more effective when you carefully attend what they say before we make our own contribution to any given conversation. So for this paper, you will apply critical reading skills as a way of listening to a writer engaged in a conversation you're not yet familiar with. So imagine that you're volunteering as a guest assistant editor for your JCC Student Club's new monthly newsletter on current issues. The club's faculty advisor has asked you to offer your recommendation for or against publication of a particular article. The club is looking for columns that JCC students will find interesting, columns that are nuanced, complex, well-argued, and relevant to a specific audience. You will evaluate the article below based on these criteria to make your recommendation for or against publication accordingly. So in other words, you'll be answering, is it an effective argument? The evidence for your reasons will be found through a close reading of the text as well as consideration of the text context. So what you're going to be doing is analyzing There Is No Tech Backlash. This is an article from the New York Times. So as always, you will have a claim, a thesis statement, and you will be analyzing the article in terms of what makes it an effective ethos, pathos, and logos appeals. And of course, ethos is credibility. So is the author's writing credible, and how so? And logos is of course logical appeal. In order to check for effective use of logos, you will identify the author's main claim and supporting reasons. Is the reasoning logical? And of course, pathos is analyzing pathos appeals. And of course, you should be considering organization within your work as always. You should consider effective topic sentences, your thesis statement. Now, in terms of style, this second paper is not a narrative. So that means you should not be using I quite as much within this paper because it will adopt a much more formal tone. So this paper is definitely more analytical, it's more academic in tone and in terms of style and word choice. So other requirements, it should be about 900 to 1200 words, about 4 pages double spaced, in Times New Roman font with 12-point font and MLA headings. So in terms of portfolio work, what needs to be included on your Google site for this particular paper is images of your annotated text, which will be basically images of the notes you take on the article, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And of course, as always, you should keep your early draft and your peer review work in your revised final draft separate so you can include it on your Google website or your electronic portfolio. And of course, a post-completion final reflection letter. And on next Tuesday, I will talk about the post-reflection letter for the DCA. Anyway, that is it. Basically, in a nutshell, what we're doing for the second paper. So here is the rubric that I like to look at when I'm grading. But as always, it pretty much includes the usual things like introduction, thesis, reasons, subpoints, supporting reasons, and do you have an analysis of ethos, logos, and pathos? and it goes more in depth of what I'm looking for when I go to grade the paper. So if you want to take a look at that, you're free to do so. And I also have a wonderful sample paper here from one of my previous students that definitely did a great job on the rhetorical analysis for this article. So I did ask her permission to use it as a model for my future courses. So this is actually her paper that I think she did a great job on. So if you want to take a look at that sort of at your own leisure, she does a great job in terms of the introduction because she does a little bit of background information. She sort of leads the reader in, and then she talks about Rob Walker's, like sort of his credentials, and then she talks about her thesis statement. So if you want to take a look at that, feel free to do so. I think she really did do a great job. So that's why I'm using that this year as one of my model papers. And here's the No Tech Backlash article. Now, I do have the link included from the New York Times, but the only issue that might come up is that if you click on the article link, it might ask you to pay to subscribe to the New York Times, and I'm trying to avoid that. So that's why I copy and pasted the article into a Google Doc, so then you can at least view it for free and not run into any issues like that. So I do have the article here in a Google Doc. Now, for homework, what I'm asking all of my students to do in my comp courses is you're going to be annotating the article in a little program called Hypothesis. And what Hypothesis does is it takes a digital article or text, and then you can highlight information, you can make annotations, you can make comments. And that's really what you should be doing for this week's homework. So important things you might want to highlight is, of course, the thesis statement, supporting details for ethos, logos, and pathos, the conclusion, maybe points that the author makes. And that's going to actually be for the whole class. And it will be a group activity. So all you do is click on that article link. And I actually have a page note here already for the thesis statement. And I did highlight the thesis statement. I'm not sure why it's not showing up that, but I'll go ahead and re-highlight it again. But I do have a page note here about the thesis statement. Now you can create an annotation by selecting text and then select the annotation button. So as you can see here, if you highlight text, you can annotate or highlight. And that's basically what you're going to be doing. Now keep in mind, if you do make a page note, you have to make sure to post it. Otherwise, it won't show up in your annotations and page notes. And then if you also want to reply to an annotation with further thoughts, you can, of course, select the reply button, and you can create a highlight, select text, and then create the highlight button. So if you need help, you can always click on the help topics, or yeah, I would probably just click on the help topics if you need further help with that. But like I said, I did make a note on Walker's main claims here, so I did get you all started with that in terms of where his thesis statement is and where his main argument is. And again, this is a class activity, so whatever annotations or highlights or notes you make, it will show up for the whole class for this article. But that's kind of nice because it gives you all a chance to sort of collaborate and sort of work in a group environment, and I think that's a great way of going about it. So the last thing I would like to do is go into our lesson for today. But like I said, you should be working on turning in the DCA. I will talk about the essay number 2 pre-write and discussion. But I did talk about how to turn in the final DCA draft via the Dropbox, and what you should be doing in terms of homework this weekend. So the last thing I would like to do is talk about the lesson. And I also would like to point out that I did add some links to our Blackboard page called Technology Help. So if you ever need help with programs like Google Websites, Blackboard, Google Drive, and Google Docs and Zoom, these are LinkedIn Learning courses, and these are great free resources for you guys. And all you do is click on the link and it will take you to a free course in terms of how to add things to your Google website page. And all of these essential trainings talks about how to do certain things within Google Websites, Blackboard, Google Drive, Google Docs, and also Zoom. So if you ever need further help with technology, I might refer you to these links here because they have videos on how to do everything within those programs. Anyway, I would like to go to lessons, and I will be doing the introducing the RA, lesson number 7. So here's the lesson for today on introducing rhetorical analysis. So the items for today is defining rhetorical analysis, what does rhetorical analysis got to do with it, and what is annotation? So what it is not. A rhetorical analysis is not a summary of a literary work or scholarly article. You may have analyzed a novel's plotline or taken apart the meaning of Shakespeare's to be or not to be in Hamlet before. However, trying to understand the meaning of a work or summarize a story is not the goal of a rhetorical analysis. Now, what it is it requires you to apply your critical reading skills in order to break down a text. In essence, you break off the parts from the whole of the piece you're analyzing. The goal of rhetorical analysis is to articulate how the author writes rather than what they actually wrote. So in order to do this, you will analyze the strategies the author uses to achieve his or her goal or purpose of writing their piece. So what does rhetorical analysis got to do with it? And what's it have to do with your life and your career goals? So employers say that when hiring, they place the greatest value on demonstrated proficiency and skills and knowledge that cut across all majors. The learning outcomes they rate as most important include written and oral communication skills, teamwork skills, ethical decision-making, critical thinking, and the ability to apply knowledge in real-world settings. So overall, basic skills of active listening, reading comprehension, and critical thinking are most important and require the highest level of functioning for hard-to-fill occupations. So employers in our region have difficulty finding qualified people to hire for these hard-to-fill living wage-paying occupations. So analyzing pathos, and again, pathos is emotional appeal. Pathos represents an appeal to the emotions of the audience. Pathos relies on the values of any given audience. The composer-author will use imagery, emotion, style, and nuance to convey meaning via a pathos appeal. So things to consider when you're looking at a particular piece for pathos is who do you think is the intended audience for the text? What do you know about them? What kinds of values does the audience have? What do they care about? Are there moments where you see the author trying to draw on the emotions or feelings of the audience? And maybe provide 2 examples of places where you think the author either appeals to the values of the intended audience or invokes feelings through imagery. Sometimes authors speak directly about emotions. Look for places where you feel, maybe concern, caring, or appeals to human values in general, like human rights, religious freedom, equality, or even children. So ethos. Ethos is an appeal to ethics, and it is a means of convincing someone of the character or credibility of the persuader. An author will prove their reasons true with the use of experts. So consider, does the author establish their authority to speak? What establishes this person as one with the appropriate level of ethos to be speaking here? So as a hint, you want to consider the publication venue as well as individual authors. As a last resort, considering the level of expertise that seems to be present in their writing itself. Do they seem knowledgeable, and how? And lastly, analyzing logos. Logos is an appeal to logic, rationality, and reasoning. This means we need to search for the claim and some reasons the author offers to the reader. So some things to consider. Is there a claim? What is it? What are the reasons given? And ask yourself, is this rational? Are there exceptions? And what are they? Does the author provide adequate evidence to support reasons given? And is this argument similar to or different from similar or parallel arguments? So this is a sample claim. People should donate organs because it saves lives. So the logical assumption is that people should do things that saves lives. But is that always the case? And are there exceptions? And lastly, what is annotation? Annotation is a strategy of active reading. It means that while reading a text, you add notes to it, make your comments, explanations, opinions, questions, or associations. The skill of annotation may take some practice, but it offers a better understanding of complicated materials and helps easily and quickly to find important information when reviewing. While making notes, you can become familiar not only with the content of an article, but also with its organization. So a properly annotated article might accomplish the following, like clearly identifying the location of important information, expresses all main ideas, traces how the arguments or ideas develop throughout the text, and introduces reactions or thoughts of the reader. And I have an article here that I would like everyone to read. And it talks about how to write an annotation for articles. So this is something to be looking at before you start the annotation activity for this weekend. And some key ideas that they have is how to write annotations effectively. So underlining or highlighting, summarizing and paraphrasing key ideas, maybe a descriptive outline, and responses and comments. So anyway, that is it for today's lesson. And again, things that you should be working on in terms of homework this weekend. And also for tonight is to turn in the final draft of the DCA. To hand that in by midnight on the black box, goodness. The final DCA essay is due by midnight via Dropbox on Blackboard. And what you should be doing over the weekend is reading chapter 10, doing reading response number 4 by next Tuesday, and annotating that article for paper 2. So again, that annotation activity can be found under paper guidelines and materials, the RA materials, and there is no tech backlash annotation activity. So be sure to contribute some annotations, some page notes. And if you have any questions, feel free to stop in during my office hours tomorrow. I have office hours tomorrow from 3 to 5 p.m. And if you want an appointment, feel free to just email me and I can make you an appointment during office hours. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great day and a great weekend.